to the Outback. How many cartoons are there that feature cute, harmless animals? From Bambi to Zootopia, animation has a long history of starring creatures that are commonly associated with being peaceful, nice-looking, and are often known to be friendly with humans. I mean, even back during the medium's beginnings, the first big cartoon celebrities were cats, mice, and rabbits. You know what kind of cute, friendly animals we never get to see featured in animation? Taipans, scorpions, funnel-web spiders, and thorny lizards. There might be a reason for the lack of representation for them, but I don't know why. But this is where Netflix comes in, to give those animals a moment to shine on their platform with their own animated feature and set in their home at the land down under with the most animals that could put you 6 feet down under. I'll give it now that this is a change of pace from what we usually get in family films, so maybe there is a chance that this trip to the Outback can offer something fresh and new compared to other animated Australian adventures. But now that these animals have broken out of the Australian Wildlife Park, will they prove that there is much more to both themselves and this movie? Or is this film as toxic as some of their venom? Let's find out. The story. You know, it took me a bit to make me realize, but you know what this movie reminds me of? Madagascar. Sure, it has a prominent Australia theme to the picture, but it does share some similarities with the narrative where it's about these zoo animals with quirky personalities escaping their man-made home so that they can live free in the wild. However, despite the comparisons, this is not a case where it wants to really be like Madagascar and copy its formula in the hopes of achieving the same success. Instead, the movie has a different goal of delivering a message about never judging a book by its cover. To see that there is a lot more to these creatures than their looks and venom in order to truly understand who they are, along with an extra message about what it means to be a family, even if they're not genetically related. I'll hand it to the picture that it already has a promising concept. It's something familiar, yet can offer something new as well with its theming, and can have a strong heart to give its audience a good lesson by watching this.
Maybe it just means being with people who love you no matter what.
Oh, sounds like us.
You know, this is a pretty good idea for a movie. Too bad the writing turned this into a wasted opportunity, though. You see, the biggest problem with this feature is that the script, well, to put this bluntly, sucks. Like, it's honestly quite bad. Even with its Australian theming, this is a very generic family-friendly story about a bunch of animals trying to go from point A to point B as they try to run away from the antagonist and meet a bunch of new friends along the way. It follows the exact same steps that these plots usually go to without adding anything that's narratively new or provides something that the viewer can connect to so that they can be invested in the journey. As a result, it makes the movie completely dull to watch because it honestly feels no different than any other point A to point B family movie out there, and whatever substance it does have is far from enough to justify its purpose. Not even the humor can salvage the weakness of the writing. Granted, I won't say that the jokes are terrible. In fact, there are some that can give a little pleasant chuckle. But I'd say the comedy overall ranges from decent to mediocre. They're not really bad, but they're nothing that's really funny either.
I haven't seen my therapist in 2 days. I am not going...
It's just easier.
But then there is the moral of the feature. The one that tells audiences to not judge a book by its cover and explain what is family. Like I said, these messages on their own are good. Yes, they're the typical lessons that can be commonly found in these types of features, but they are still good lessons and I do applaud it for spreading it. In fact, one good note I can give to this is that there is a noticeable heart in this picture where it genuinely does value to spread the word about its moral. However, the one problem that it does to this movie is how it really emphasizes that this is for kids. Just like with the story itself, the execution on this delivery is more problematic than helpful, where the message feels like it's being forced upon its audience. It even has to sometimes stop in its tracks so that it really hammers it and really talk down to everyone about it to make sure that even the smallest kid understands what it's trying to say.
So who cares what a bunch of silly humans think?
But Chaz said that they'd love me. He said I was special.
And you are special.
Of course, it's fine if it wants to make its target audience children. But there is a fine line between being kid-friendly and really putting the tone down to the point of feeling mostly juvenile where only kids would be able to watch it. I know that children will enjoy this way more than I have, but that still doesn't change how I think that this is not a good story. I get what it wants to do, but with this script, it's forgettable at best. The animation. Well, if the writing won't do the movie any favors, at the very least, I can say that this is a nice looking feature. I'll say right now that this is not the kind of movie that will give you a new perspective on either Sydney or the Outback in an exciting way like The Rescuers Down Under or Finding Nemo. Actually, I'd even say that a lot of the environment is the typical locations that these films go to, like the starting point with the zoo, the big city, the sewers, and the deserted and natural lands of the Outback. Also, I might as well have this out of the way too, that even the style of the designs can feel a little generic for an animated film. I'd even say that it's almost stereotypical for how they bring these animals into the cartoon world, where regardless of what creature it is, they're given a rounder and cuter look to make them seem more friendly and easily approachable for children. But regardless if the visual concepts can be left to be desired, the animation does make the whole picture look good. Yes, the backgrounds are conceptually plain, but it does know how to make the environments feel big and have each area feel like its own obstacle for the characters as they go through their journey. And even if the characters are generically cute, they are also eye-catchingly colorful where they can stand out from one another and supply their own set of unique movements. While they don't make the most dynamic poses, the animators do make the most with the character animation to help highlight the personalities.
Okay, if he's gonna do that the whole way, I'm taking the bus.
It's also worth noting that there is a wide variety of different animals that the team encounters along the way, making it pretty fun to see what animals will come help them next. So at least the designs can benefit from having a good quantity. Granted, I can't say the same about the humans, especially when the kids have that odd look to them, but at least the people with the most attention are the ones with the better designs, Chaz and Ben. And as it is a more adventurous type of feature, there are some scenes that have a more fast pace and make the most out of every element in the animation in order to have each of them exciting. Unfortunately, due to the weak writing, a lot of them are the same type of action scenes that these animated films generally have, so they're not as engaging as they hope to be. But I will give it that the climax does provide a strong and creative finale that can be fun to watch. That, and this is a well-rendered feature where it shows that the filmmakers did have some good technology behind them to give the movie a polished look with nice effects, convincing textures, and deliver a lot of detail to have a theatrical quality to the overall picture. It's not as spectacular to see as the real Land Down Under, but if there is one thing this movie has going for, it's that it does supply some enjoyable looking animation. The characters. As I said before, the moral of this movie is to never judge a book by its cover, that there is a lot more to someone than their physical appearance. In the case of the characters in Back to the Outback, each of them is a relatively small book. As much as I'd like to see who these characters are on the inside, they're a group of one-dimensional characters that mostly offer just one trait with nothing else to show that they can evolve from their adventure. The one positive trait that they do have is that they have a great and mostly Australian cast providing the voices, making the most with the personalities that they're given, and whenever there's a joke that can be somewhat enjoyable, it's because of the performer's delivery.
Why don't you sing it to us now?
And maybe Frank can dance.
Maybe Frank needs help.
It's a twig, I know that.
But even if they do the best they can, there isn't a whole lot that they can do in the first place with the kind of bland archetypes that they're given. Maddie is the leading taipon who wants to find a place where she is loved. Nigel is the timid and emotionally sensitive scorpion. Zoe is the thorny lizard with a goth girl-like sassy attitude. Frank is the funnel web spider who is desperately looking for a girlfriend. And Jackie appears at the beginning as the sweet-hearted mother figure of the animals. Joining their journey is Pretty Boy, who has a similar role to Alex from Madagascar, where he is the star attraction at the zoo, but accidentally finds himself tagging along on the adventure and is the most eager to return where he is beloved by fans. However, as he starts out acting like a narcissistic diva, he then grows fond of Maddie and the gang and eventually becomes an ally. Basically, he's the usual jerk that eventually grows a heart.
You know what this means? You don't hate me anymore.
I'm a Capricorn. I hate everybody. Can we please just go? Soon as I find a private jet, I'm out of here. Gone.
Along the way, they meet up with several animals that aid them on their journey to the Outback, like a shark, redback spiders, Tasmanian devils, and more. But their roles are just to appear in one scene to aid the heroes, and that's it. And then there is Chaz, the villain of the film that's constantly looking to get the animals back at the zoo. Among all the characters in the feature, he's possibly the one with the most layers. Maybe not a great or even an original character on his own, but is more interesting than most others here. He's in charge of maintaining the more dangerous creatures at the park, and portrays himself as this Crocodile Dundee type hero who fought against the nastiest animals that Australia has to offer. However, with his eager son Ben always on his side to finally see his dad in action and use all those skills he's been told to retrieve the runaways, he has to prove both his son and himself that he is the legend he claims to be.
Hey, let's not split the dummies, son. There are kids on that bus.
Craps! I'll take the wheel and you jump on top.
What?
Good thing you taught me how to drive a combat vehicle when I was 6.
Yeah, fine. Get me closer, son. Go on in. Okay, just steady, son.
I'll say that they're not all bad, and I would love to know more about their personalities, but for a movie that tells us to not judge someone by their appearance, it's honestly hard for me to do so when there's very little to judge in the first place. This has got to be so far the most underwhelming trip to the land down under. Back to the Outback is probably a cute adventure for children, but outside of that, it's just a generically forgettable animated kids film. It's got some things going for it that does supply some quality, like the animation is well done, it has a nice message to give to the viewer, and the actors did a solid job with the voices, but the writing is so bland and weak that all it can offer is a tiresome story, cliché tropes as characters, and even with a positive message, it's also overbearing with how it talks down to its audience. Like I said, I am aware that this is more for children than for someone like me. And I find that this could be a decent watch for kids. If ever you need some kind of kid distractor and want them to sit still for about 90 minutes, then this could do the job well. Despite all the venomous creatures in the starring role, this movie is relatively harmless. But then again, I'm not necessarily planning on going back to this Outback anytime soon.